Hello, my name is Anne.
Hi, my name is Steph.
And welcome back to Journeys for Change. On this podcast, we discuss sustainability, sustainable development, and we also use our own experiences to discuss change for local people and places. On this episode, we will be discussing sustainable consumerism, also referred to as ethical consumerism or conscious consumerism. And it refers to how we make conscious choices as consumers to make sure that what we purchase does not have a negative effect on the environment. So, Steph, what do you think of this topic?
Well, I think it's very relevant, especially nowadays when the whole world has a trend of rethinking what we're doing and how we consume, how we produce, and the impact it has on our planet. So I think it's very relevant to bring it to the table, share it with our community, and why not inform them about what are those practices or easy tips that they can put into place on their daily life to create a change. So Anne, when you think about sustainable consumerism, I think it's also important to let the people know what exactly it is and how it reflects on the companies, or what are those relevant things that as consumers we need to know, or we need to see or learn to identify when we are on the market for certain product or services as well.
Yes, I think we can talk about its importance, especially for us as consumers and also for the companies that are producing goods, because our decisions mean that it affects the bottom line of these companies. What it means is that me and you, we make responsible decisions, whether we are looking at the social impact or we are looking at the environmental impact. We are thinking things like, for example, is this packaging sustainable? These companies responsible with their workforce in terms of for example, fair wages? Are they sourcing their products properly? Are they producing and disposing waste in the right way? So these are the factors that contribute to how we make decisions when we are thinking of purchasing products. So by adopting these kind of practices or thinking about our purchasing decisions in this way, we contribute consciously and unconsciously to a healthier planet. And we also somehow condition these producers to also think sustainability when they're producing.
So basically, sustainable consumerism, it relies on the power of purchase that the consumers will have to make a change, right?
Exactly, because the power is in our pockets. Because at the end of the day, if you produce something that is not being purchased as a manufacturer, for example, then it means you're stuck and you may need to close business. So it's up to you to make sure that the consumers are happy with the product. And this happiness is shown with the way they exercise the power of their pockets, the money they have. So, yes, it means that we as consumers can use our money to make sure that organizations behave the way we want them to.
On that line, and probably taking the risk to jump too forward into the topic at this minute, that sounds okay, that the purchase power can be used as an agent of change, as we were discussing in previous episodes of the podcast. But what about those communities where the purchase power is not an option? You know what I mean? Like, from our perspective, where we are in Europe or even in certain places in America, we have that access, or even in Asia, we have that access to options and choices, right? But what happened? How can I exert that sustainable consumerism? And if I'm a part of a community where options are not so variable, or you know what I mean? Like when there are not so many options, or I don't have the purchase of power to actually exert the pressure on the market and the production.
Yes, I understand. There are times that even me as an empowered consumer, I may not be able to exercise my sustainable consumerism or the power of using my money for the right causes. I understand that. So what happens? We need to consider small steps where can you start? And there is need for collaboration, because it's not just the work of the consumer to force these producers to do right? So it's also the work of regulators, like, for example, government and government organizations, to make sure that the producers are doing the right thing. And also them themselves, the manufacturers, they also have a duty. So there's that power of collaboration where the consumer, the manufacturer, and the regulator come together to make sure that they're moving forward in terms of sustainability. But when we talk about sustainable consumerism, it's just the small acts that you, as an individual, what you can control is the power of your pocket. So I do understand there are places around the world that this is not an option. People are getting what is accessible and consuming that. So I do understand, but we need to come together. Whether we are using our voices or our pockets, we need to collaborate and come together and make sure that we are exercising our consumer power.
Okay, yeah. So just to recap there and try to highlight certain valuable points that I feel you mentioned in your comment. You were talking about, yes, the power that we have as consumers to inform ourselves and make choices. And also there is a part on the producers. There's a responsibility that lies on the producers for them to choose the right way of producing, and also consider the life cycle of the products and try to minimize the impact that the products or services have in the environment. And also there's a responsibility from the authorities to help people to access those options, and also to guarantee that if there are minimal options, minimal choices, these are ethically sourced and produced, right? So I think it's key to highlight those three aspects, especially because people, when we tend to talk about sustainable consumerism, we focus on us, but it's actually a three-party conversation, right? So let's have it clear there. Another thing that I wanted to discuss with you, Anne, is what do you think are the key aspects? Now we have mentioned production, we have mentioned power of purchase, but what about other things that we should consider, like, for example, measuring the way we buy things? Because, and I'm included, sometimes you, especially now when we have so much access to information on the internet, on the TV, on social media, you see the fashion trends, or you see the latest mobile or things like that sometimes we go jump and feel that we can afford them, we just go buy it, but not necessarily need them. Do you think it's important to have some sort of minimalism on the consumption trend?
Yes, there is need to take action in other ways. You mentioned minimalist spending or consumption right there. And yes, we need to prioritize reducing consumption, because we tend to buy more than we need. You already have something, but you feel the need to buy more of it. Then it gets to your house and you don't have the use for it. And that kind of consumption means that production goes up, right? And it also means that you have things that you don't need and you may need to dispose them, and the disposal methods are not very effective. So there is need to only buy what you need. That is one way we can manage our sustainable consumerism agenda. Another way is to support sustainable producers. So once we establish, for example, a certain producer is using the right methods to produce, they have taken in perspective the issues of fair trade, they are sourcing their products properly, they are packaging properly. Let's support these people and talk about them word of mouth, because once we do that, others will also learn that once you do the right thing, people will support you and take word out there that you're doing the right thing. So there's that. There's also the consideration of alternative consumption models, like sharing economy, the circular economy. These kind of models that allow us, for example, if I have a car, we can do carpooling for the kids in the block, for example, to go to school or for us to go to work. Things like this that help the environment. So we can prioritize prioritize these kind of sustainable living models, things like second-hand shopping, things like repairing items instead of buying new ones.
I think at the end, it also touches base with the fact of having a strong sense of community. What you're saying is like, let's go back to basics, to sharing is caring, something that I probably don't have used to it anymore at my house. Why don't I donate it to someone who might need it, or to entities that are focused on repurposing certain objects, or carpooling. These are options, or cycling to work one day. I know it's not so easy. Believe me, I'm in the process of transforming into that, but it's also appreciating what is the simple things of life. I mean, sometimes you might think you don't have the time to do it, but you can discover other passions through it, right?
What I feel is we have a lot of power in our hands, not just the power of pocket, but also the power of decision making and the power of choice. We can achieve so much if we spread this power around. So, as you said, the community perspective, where we come together and make decisions as a community, we can make decisions as a neighborhood. These kind of decisions will help us really achieve what we want to achieve through sustainable consumerism. This topic actually touches on one of the topics that we had discussed before about sustainability in the supply chain. You actually work in the industry, and there's some relationship between what we're discussing today and the supply chains. There's a point of how all these producers are making these products and the information they're sharing with the public in terms of making our purchasing decisions. So, what could you comment on that regarding the manufacturer's responsibilities within sustainable consumerism?
That's a good point that you touched there, and you're right. It's directly linked. I think visibility and transparency is vital in this process. Producers should be very honest and put the information out there available for their potential consumers and customers to make informed decisions. Now, as a producers or manufacturers in general, we need to make sure that all our operations is streamlined in a way that works towards sustainability. Yeah, we need to make sure that our materials that are involved in the production are ethically sourced. In terms, like you have mentioned before, the people that is involved have fair conditions, things are not pollutant and things like that. But also, it's important that we consider the aftermath of the production and sale of the product. Okay, we need to consider that we have, as producers, an extended responsibility to consider what's going to happen with that product when it's no longer needed, what's going to happen with the packaging when it's not longer fulfilling its purpose. Am I able as a producer to receive it back on my premises and repurpose it, or should it go to a landfill or to the oceans? And if it goes, what is the impact that it's going to have? To avoid certain scenarios that we have unfortunately seen recently in these days, where you see chemicals spilling in the water, contaminating and affecting communities. So I think we need to embrace as manufacturers also that responsibility and owning it, and put it out there for people to know what we're doing. And it's not only an added value to our product, but also an added value to the planet.
Yes, I agree with you there, because without information, then there's no decision to take in terms of being conscious about our consumer habits. And yes, as a consumer, speaking from a consumer's perspective, yes, I do want to see that businesses are giving the information that we need to make decisions. So on top of that, I feel like people like us as storytellers, communicators, content creators, and many others out there in the world, we also have a responsibility to take it on from these producers and the information they have shared and pass it on to the public. We do our job of communicating this information, because it's not that every consumer is, flipping papers and watching labels and all this to make sure that they're doing the right thing. So it's important that there's a middleman there, or rather people who concentrate on communicating, the media, journalists, to make sure that this information is actually processed and given to consumers in a way that they're able to consume. Because if you look at product labels, oh, they're very difficult to read. And, many people, I'll tell you, sometimes I'm a victim of that. I do not read labels enough. So you can imagine, if this information is not shared, it comes in codes, it comes in very technical language that consumers are not able to process. So there is need to be that generation. We should inspire a generation of communicators, storytellers, content creators who break this down and let people know what it all means and how it affects their lives.
Okay, I think it would be worth of having an episode just to discuss how the information could be delivered in a friendlier manner. So we all that we are not so informed, or maybe we are not so having so much knowledge on the topic, can digest it and actually inform ourselves about it. Don't you think?
Right. Because, we are doing a good job with the podcast, but not everybody can access a podcast, right? So we should find ways of inspiring a whole community of people who communicate in a language that their communities understand, whether it's a podcast or it's a banner or it's a community meeting, whatever it is that you do to help people understand this information better. I think there is a lot of room there to break down this information and let people make conscious decisions about their purchasing.
So now that we discuss how producers can improve, how consumers need to be informed, and what things they need to look at, and also how governments can help to maintain the trend of sustainable consumerism, let's land this topic in a more day-to-day kind of a thing, yeah? Because sometimes, and I'm included there, sometimes you receive so much information and you know that the planet needs us, that a change is required, but you say, oh, I'm stuck here on my daily tasks. What can I do to make small changes that, if they replicate, can be the whole wave of environmental sustainability? So what do you think could be those small actions that I can do as soon as I wake up in the morning and feel better with myself?
Right. Let's start with the fact that sustainable consumerism is a journey, right? Mm-hmm. It's not something you just wake up and say, I've changed my life, I'm a sustainable consumer, because obviously you need a lot of information. And as you said, there is a process of processing this information and understanding it and applying it into your daily life. So it is a journey. So it's about, as you said, small actions. So if I wake up today and actually sit down and write a list of the things that I need to buy, then think whether I need them or not, prioritizing minimal consumption, like buy what you need. If you don't need it, cancel it out of the list. That is one thing that we can do very quickly, and it actually saves us money. So there's motivation there. Right? Yeah. Then, of course, there are other things like looking at the products in your fridge. How are they packaged? Are you able to recycle these things? These small actions within your house or within your community will lead up to more things. The other thing we could possibly do, a good percentage of us, a very good percentage, is on social media. And there is a power of influence in social media. There is word of mouth, talking to your parents, talking to your neighbors, your family. So there is once you know something that could lead to sustainability, to sustainable practices, share it. Just explain to people something and put it forward. Or call your family on the next family call, discuss these things. I think there are so many small actions we can do, but sometimes, we just think everybody should know. If I know it, then everybody should know. But the truth is, maybe they're waiting for you to tell them.
I think another aspect that we need to consider is when you were talking, and it struck me when you were talking about the things that you buy, also trying to prioritize longevity and durability, quality over quantity, right? Sometimes we tend to buy a lot of things, but not necessarily they will be there through time, right? So try to select things that we know that we're going to use, that they are really adding value to our daily life, but also that they have good quality, so you don't have to replace them as often and as fast as the world can produce or recover.
Yeah, right. And of course, as we talked, I know this is a topic for another day about circular economy. Think if there is something you don't need to dispose and you can pass it on to somebody else who needs it, why not? Because that means that does not go, for example, into recycling or into a landfill. We have that responsibility of just sorting out the things in our houses or the things that we are about to dispose and see, can this go somewhere else?
Well, I had the opportunity of reading a lot about how community gardens can get people together, and it's also a way of sourcing your own food in a very sustainable and organic way, as you mentioned, free of chemicals or fertilizers or things like that, while you're creating a bond in your community that can be translated into other activities and other things and benefits for the people. So yeah. And also, I think another change that we can do is trying to find alternative ways of transportation. I know it has been mentioned before, not only by us, but by tons of people. But I think it actually makes a huge difference in the planet and also on our lives. Personally, I'm in the process of embracing it. I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy, but I'm getting there. I'm trying to walk more and trying to put myself out there. It's important, right?
If I'm using my car every day, it cannot be compared to actually taking a walk if I need to, go to the shops or buy something or just, visit a friend. If I can take a train, for example, if I drive to work every day, 5 days a week, I can decide I'll drive 3 days and take a train 2 days. Because, yes, a train is a meeting, but at the same time, it's taking a lot of people at once. So those are thousands of cars that have been saved from emitting carbon into the environment. So, yeah, it's very important to make travel choices.
Yeah. And definitely, I don't want to leave without mentioning that we appreciate that this might be overwhelming when you think of, oh my God, I have so many things to change. But don't worry, we've been there. We are there. We're in the same boat with you. And it's important to understand that this is a journey, as you mentioned before, and that we're going one step at a time. And what is relevant is that we are aware of it, that we are already realized that the change is needed and we're working on it. So one day at a time, one step at a time, we build community and we change minds.
We've shared a lot of information today that our listeners can use, and I'm sure there are other people talking about this topic and many other topics around sustainability. So what we would do is encourage everybody to take their first small steps, and the journey starts there and continues. So we are coming to the end of the podcast, and we thank you once again for joining us in this episode, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.